Hi everyone, I'm Martin and welcome back to Donnington Castle Model Railway. In today's episode we're going to look at three topics. The first is how I get my Peco Electrofrog points ready to be installed on the layout, because there's going to be quite a few of those going on the upper running lines. Next I'll come on and show you again very quickly how I produce gorse bushes to go on the embankments around the layout. And then finally I'm going to reveal to you what my first ever Loco was. And there are some reasons for why I'm going to be doing that today, and I'll come to those when we get to that point. But let's start out with Electrofrog points. Okay, so we start today's episode with Electrofrog points. What I'll do is I'll show you one fresh out of the packet and then show you what I do to get them prepared ready for the layout. Okay, so very quickly I will take you through the process I use for getting points onto the layout. There are lots of step-by-step guides out there, so I will link to one up in the top corner if you want to actually look at going through that step-by-step. The one I can remember is Dean Park, so that may be the one that I link to up there. I'll see which one I think is good. Okay, so these are Peco Streamline, so code 75 points. I'm using wooden sleeper because in this era my understanding was that even though there was lots of concrete track, sleepers on the points didn't get changed to concrete for a long time after the into the 80s and 90s. So in 70s, wooden sleepers is all good. The good thing is Peco provide lots of info on the back about using these. So if you're going to do it, I would certainly recommend reading that. But I'm going to very quickly talk you through the 3 or 4 things that I think I do on these points. So this is a set of points that I've not touched. So you can see we have a frog wire that's folded in here. You'll see that there are wires connecting across here. It seems to me that on streamline points, these are recessed into the plastic, so they're harder to get at. There is a gap in the sleepers here, which we'll be making use of. And out the box, you get a kind of a spring, so they flick across nicely. Now, I'm going to be using point motors. I'm going to be powering the frog. I'm going to be using slow action point motors, and therefore there are a bunch of things that I'm going to need to do to these. And here is one that I did earlier, and I will just talk through the things that I did. First of all, I took the spring out. I did that from the bottom. You can take some of this stuff out to make it an easier process, but I find that if you're really careful, you can just kind of pull it out and chuck it in the bin. I believe that if you want to put springs back in and you've lost them, get in contact with Peco and they will send you some for free. Or at least that used to be the case. Apologies if that's outdated information. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I have fixed my droppers onto a wire that crosses between these two blades here, and I'll mention why I've done that in a second. But I effectively join those using my dropper wire all underneath, and then the dropper wire will go through a hole that I mark out. Next thing you will see is that the wires in here have been snipped through. That means that to power that section of track, you need to provide power. That's why this bit's been done here, because the frog is going to be powered via the point motor, which will have a switch in it, which will switch it either way depending on which direction the point is set. I then snipped a little bit off the frog wire and then got a nice solid solder joint on there for the frog wire that will go to the point motor. Then what I've done is I've done my usual first step in track weathering, which is to coat the sides of the rails and the chairs with rail match light rust. This will all get toned down when we weather later on. I've been test fitting it, so we've got an insulated rail joiner on here and a standard rail joiner on here. These two will be insulated. The length of wire. So I don't use block detection on my points because I think it's a waste of a sensor on a block detection unit. So I just, because these are going to be powered into the main bus. So I've given myself enough cable just to go off to where I think that's going to be on the layout. And that's about it for this. As I say, if you want to see the steps in a little bit more detail, then go check out the linked video. All I've got to do now is go through all of the points I'm going to be using and get them the same as this one, and then they're in a good place to fit. Okay, right, next topic. In this part of the world, there's lots of upland heath, like Greenham Common, where I've spent a lot of time over the years. And in those locations, there's one plant that you will see quite commonly, and that is gorse. Now, the old expression is that when gorse is in flower, it's the season for kissing. The reason why people say that is because gorse flowers most of the year round. It flowers the most in early spring, and if you go up on somewhere like Greenham Common that time of year, you'll get this wonderful aroma of kind of coconut. It smells very much like suntan lotion, kind of all across the common. But they are also very easy things to model, and it can be done actually really quickly, really easily. So I will just take you through that process and show you how I do that. Okay, so making gorse bushes is really, really easy. There are only, I believe, 4 things that we're going to use. So I've got some 2mm static grass. This is medium green. Any kind of rich green colour should be fine. We've then got some yellow scatter, bright yellow scatter. I've got layering spray, but you can use hairspray or other kind of spray glue. And then some. This is Finnish moss. So this was bought off Amazon in a big bag. Again, it's left over from another modelling project. Now, depending on what kind of type of or what size of gorse bush you want to model, just get yourselves a bit of this. This stuff comes with lots of these little kind of twiggy bits in that go black. So I would just remove those first. And then, really, really simple. So a gorse bush is really spiny and spiky. So we can actually simulate that really well using 2mm static grass. So really easy process. Just spray some spray on. Get your static grass applicator, although you don't even need to use this, just actually sprinkling it on by hand creates a pretty good look as well. And go over there like that. In fact, I've not got enough, so I'll show you that doing it by hand is also going to work fine as well. This just gives it that lovely kind of spiky and thorny look to it. Going to do the bottom. Let's just give a quick blast around this side. Okay, great. And then another quick blast, and then we're going to go over the top with the yellow scatter. Now, how much you do here is really going to depend on what time of year you're going for. If you're going for like kind of late winter, early spring, then you really want to go to town on the yellow. Late summer, we're just going to have kind of a nice sprinkling. I think that's more than enough on there. And there we go. Really, really easy gorse bush. That's all ready now to go onto one of the embankments on the layout. And the final thing on today's track talk will be to reveal my first ever Loco. Now, I'll be a little bit more specific and say my first ever 00 gauge Loco. Because prior to this, there were a few Lego trains, but maybe that's a subject for another day. And the reasons for talking about this right now is that this is a Loco that came from Hatton's. Being from the northwest, Hatton's was a shop that very occasionally I got to go to, and as a small child, walking in there to their shop on Smithdown Road was always a wonderful thing. It really felt like an Aladdin's cave. floor to ceiling of kind of boxes, and as a child you wanted absolutely everything in there, but we never really allowed any of it. But from Hatton's came my first model, and that is this. So it is a Lima Class 47 in Intercity livery with ScotRail branding. I can't quite remember if this was bought on one of those few visits up to Hatton's to the shop, or whether it's something that I got for Christmas. I believe it was definitely a present. Would have been bought end of the 80s, early 90s. Yeah, this was the first model I ever got for myself. Growing up, there were always 3 models in the family. I remember very, very well. There was an old Hornby 00 black tank engine. There was my favourite, which was a GWR pannier tank from Hornby. And then there was a box that we were never allowed to touch, which was a Hornby 00 Golden Fleece, an A4. And yes, I remember not being allowed to go anywhere near that as a child. So at the point where I did finally get a chance to have a 00 layout, I used the word layout in inverted commas there. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about what that was in a future video. But at some point, very early on in that process, I got my first model to run around that, which is this one here. Now, since I've gotten back into modelling, I've taken some time and I've actually converted this to DCC and also added a lighting kit into this. So at some point soon, I'll certainly get this out onto the layout and give it a run round, so you'll be able to have a look at that. So obviously, there's been lots of videos about Hatton's closing, so I won't dwell on that topic. But I normally buy pre-owned Locos, but in the sale there were some really, really good prices, so I have treated myself to a couple of things. And when those arrive, I'll certainly give you a look at those because I'm really excited. A bit sad in some ways that they'll be the last ever Locos from Hatton's, but I think it'll be great to kind of get them up and running and to show you a running session with them. Okay, right. That's it for track talk today. I hope you found these topics interesting. There's going to be a layout update very soon, so you'll get a chance to see some of the things that I've been talking about here and some of the things I've been working on. Some good progress with the layout, but I will leave it till the layout update to talk about those some more. So if you haven't already, please do think about subscribing. In a second, there's going to be a screen with 2 videos up here from the channel. And a subscribe button over there. So if you could click that subscribe button, then that will really help the channel. Thank you very much, and I hope to see everyone soon. Bye-bye.